No? All right, see, and this is exactly what needs to be changed. As a current student who's studying education, pursuing my teaching degree, I think this is very scary to me. So, like I said, I'm currently a junior at Rutgers University, pursuing my teaching certificate, and being a part of the generation that is a product of No Child Left Behind and high-stakes testing, we are the most vulnerable and targeted populations to feed into corporate education reform. As a generation raised to value numbers and letter grades, prestige, fluffing up our resumes, we are programmed to be drawn to harmful organizations such as Teach for America and Students for Education Reform. So, us here all today, all these people with me, this is a call to action to engage our generation, engage your local university and college students in this battle. Because if you don't, we will have a future of more and more people abusing their power and pushing for policies that are not only ineffective, but put our children most at risk. Policymakers and politicians are working to drill into our minds, my classmates' minds, my organizers' minds, that our students are failing, that our schools are failing, and that our teachers are failing. We have to collectively work together to shake our generation into a new consciousness and make them realize the very schools policymakers and politicians label as failing are the same exact schools with the children they neglected and chose to leave behind. Those people right in there, right next to us, those people right in there, damn well how severe educational inequity is in our country. But they choose to ignore these factors that impact their ability to succeed in school. Rather than allowing us teachers to teach them the skills to fix these problems, they tell us to jam bubble sheets in front of their faces and teach them that the value of their mind is based on a test score. And that's the shame of our nation. And they teach us that, they force us to practice policies that make our children believe that being so impoverished that they go to school almost every day with an empty stomach, or can't seem to care about graduating because all they care about is not getting shot because from the severity of their gang violence in their neighborhood schools, is no excuse that they're failing. That if they fail, it is their fault, their parents' fault, their teachers' fault, but never ever the fault of the people who are the least involved with the very children whose futures they are ripping away. So this, again, is a call to action to do as much as you can to open the eyes of thousands and thousands of students in my generation. Help us engage with you, teach us, and engage with the students being harmed at the K-12 level. There's unstoppable power in numbers. The more eyes that are open, the more potential we have for people to join us in this struggle to protect the civil right of a quality education and the teaching profession, and most importantly, the children of our country. Thank you.
My name is 39407957. Obviously, that's not my real name. But I address myself using my Chicago Public Schools identification number because, unfortunately, that is how students, just like me, are recognized by this here Department of Education. That's how they see us, the students. We're merely a number, whether it's an ACT score, an SAT score, a GPA, or some worthless high-stakes test score. Student voices have been persistently shut out, and we will not stand for this. We are here to change this. My actual name is Israel Munoz. I'm a senior from Thomas Kelly High School in the south side of Chicago, a student activist with the Chicago Students Organizing to Save Our Schools, and also I've been working with Students United for Public Education. I'm here to speak on behalf of the students of Chicago. Now, as many of us may know, the largest school closings in U.S. history are staged to take place this year in Chicago. 54 elementary schools have been targeted to be closed. 11 schools are intended to be merged. This is to say that 2 or more schools will be occupying a single building, and a total of 61 schools will be shut down. 61 buildings will be shut down. All of these school closings are in low-income minority neighborhoods, mostly of African American and Hispanic and Latinos. They are shutting down public education where it is needed the most. Is that right? No! As a result of these school closings, young students will now have to cross some of the deadliest gang tories in the U.S. just to get to school. This will inevitably lead to violence against students, and in unfortunate cases, this will lead students into death. This is genocide. Our education is dying. Our students will be dying. Mayor Rahm Emanuel and Barbara Byrd Bennett, open your eyes. Your method of bettering our education involves putting us, the students, in crosshairs. It is estimated that 30,000 elementary school students will be directly affected. In reality, every CPS student is affected by these ill-fated policies because it has been done without the consent of parents and without the consent of the students. Students in receiving schools are affected by forcing students from oftentimes rival neighborhoods into overcrowded schools with classroom sizes of 40 students. The problems that arise in these affected elementary schools, whether it is violence or academic deterioration, will inevitably be carried into high schools as well. This is not a healthy policy. This is unacceptable. These school closings are said to be unnecessary action because of a $1 billion deficit that Chicago Public Schools is facing, as well as underutilization. The truth of the matter is that these underutilized schools are the ones that have been neglected by CPS and the Board of Ed. Underutilized schools are not half empty. They have empty classrooms because our classrooms are overcrowded. If we reduce the number of classes per student, then the unused classrooms can have students in them, and therefore the whole school can be properly used. Of course, this will mean investing further into our schools, and Mayor Rahm Emanuel is not too fond of investing in public education. He says that there is no money to fund our schools. He is lying. The money is there. It is just in the wrong hands. Every year, $250 million in TIF money is taken away from CPS and is invested instead into multi-million and multi-billion enterprises such as Boeing, the Board of Trade, the Sears Tower, the Hyatt Hotels, etc. The millionaires who receive these TIF funds do not need them as much as our schools do. TIF money is intended for blighted communities. The Chicago's Gold Coast and the Chicago's Downtown District, which receive half of the city's TIF funds, are not blighted communities. Yes, they are. Inglewood is a blighted community. Brighton Park is a blighted community. South Side and West Side Chicago is composed of blighted communities. Rahm Emanuel, this is where TIF money should be invested. Essentially, the students of Chicago don't believe that these administrators are trying to improve our educational system or our living standards. We believe that they want to make educating minority students as cheap as they possibly can. Mayor Rahm Emanuel has failed us. Barbara Byrd Bennett has failed us. The Department of Education has failed us. They are protecting corporate interests. On Monday, March 25th, 2 days before the larger rally in downtown Chicago, the Chicago Students Organizing to Save Our Schools held its first action. We held a press conference at the Chicago Public Schools headquarters where we addressed ourselves to the media and stated our demands, which included a moratorium on school closings, proper usage of TIF funding, and an elected school board. Aside from this, we had a little gift for Mayor Rahm Emanuel. The CSOSOS wrote him a nice big letter. It was literally 4 feet long, that way he could not miss it. And being the generous students that we are, we hand-delivered it to him. We marched from CPS headquarters all the way to City Hall, up to the 5th floor, and right outside of Mayor Rahm Emanuel's office. We called out Rahm Emanuel, and like usual, he ignored the student voice. he stayed inside his office. But student voice would not be silenced. We had a mic check outside his office, and all 60 students present read the letter out loud at once. If he did not want to face us physically, well, he's going to have to face our actions. And believe me, the students, both in Chicago and across the country, have numerous actions in mind. So if there's anything to learn from this, everyone here should recognize the power that is held within us, the students. Our presence speaks volumes. Our ideas and creativity is infinite. And it is we who should be at the forefront of this movement. Thank you.
All right, I don't want to speak too long because these guys said it better than I think I ever could. But so we're in Students United for Public Education. We are organizing on college campuses to try to join this movement for public education and resist corporate education reform. And so I'm a student at Columbia University, and I feel like we're kind of in a double bind at Columbia because we've got both many students coming from modest backgrounds, a lot of them joining our group because they want to be future teachers. And so we're about to come into this world of high stakes testing and attacks on teachers' union and teachers' professionalism. So we're fighting on that front. But I think something that's also that we don't always think about is that on our campuses, this is where the people like Michelle Rhee and Arnie Duncan and Rahm Emanuel, this is where they come from. Because college campuses, I know mine in particular at Columbia, are prime recruiting grounds for groups like Teach for America, Students for Education Reform, and all these other groups funded by super PACs and funded by billionaires who want to recruit the next generation of education reform leaders. And so I think we have the double goal of getting ourselves involved in a lot of the great movements that we've already got going on here. But we also have on our own campuses are, a lot of us don't know it, but are the battleground for the future of education. Because, and the other side, the right wing of education reform, is winning so far on our campuses. So we feel that in resisting Students for Education Reform, Teach for America, and by at the very least by presenting the other side of the debate, showing students what these groups actually do, we can make some big progress. Because the thing is, a lot of the students at our universities, most people don't want to go ruin public education. Nobody's in it to go. Nobody comes into a school like Columbia or Rutgers or NYU and wants to go out in the world and destroy public education. Nobody comes into that. Everyone wants to go and help. People who do Teach for America want to go and give back to the communities, and they want to help schools and make a positive impact. And groups like TFA and SFR exploit that goodwill and that idealism, and they recruit these people to be literally the vanguard of educational destruction. So at the same time as we're joining all of you in the streets, in our schools to fight standardized tests and school closing, we're also fighting the fight on our own campuses and trying to turn our campuses into from places of recruitment for the education deformers to a birthplace of new teachers and advocates for real public education. Thanks very much.
Hi guys. I'm not nearly as well prepared as all of these guys were, so I apologize for that. But I'm Sarah. I'm from Wisconsin. I've met a lot of you over this weekend, and it's been wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, and I think I'm the only one here, as far as I know, from Wisconsin. But I wanted to share a little bit why I got involved in this movement and why I got involved with Students United for Public Education. And it can be all attributed mostly to, well, my parents, but also Governor Scott Walker, so I'm sure he's really proud of that. Yeah, he decided that our teachers were not worth a quality pension and bargaining rights and unions, and he didn't think that they deserved any of that in Wisconsin, and we showed him that he was wrong. And I went to the Capitol every day in 2011, and the wildlife protests were there, and it was an incredible experience, and I just wanted to let everyone here know that the reason I got into this is for all of you guys. Because my mother is a kindergarten teacher, and I got involved, and I got involved for teachers. That was my initial, that was why I initially got involved, is because I have faith in all of you guys, and I have faith in public education. And I know that you guys are not the end-all be-all, and you guys can't work miracles, and I know poverty and all of those things are extremely important in this discussion, but I do think teachers work miracles every day. And I think that needs to be recognized, and we are undervaluing teachers in education, and that's why I got involved, to bring back the trust and the belief in teachers and principals and paraprofessionals and social workers and everything that's involved in the public education system. So that is why I'm here today, and I wanted to thank all of you guys for everything that you do every day, and don't forget that you are loved. I know that you feel undervalued sometimes, but I love all of you, and thousands of other people do, millions of other people do too, so don't ever feel like you're out there alone. Students, all your students love you. So keep your head up, and we'll keep fighting for you. Thanks.
All right, my name's Jacob Chafin. I am from Ohio University, and I just want to briefly talk about how I got here today to start out, and then go into, as an education major, what I think like the future is going to look like for public education, and what a resistance movement will look like to this neoliberal agenda that we're currently here for and trying to resist. It's similar coming into this. I remember growing up going to protests against the levies that we would, or for the levies that we would have in our school districts in Ohio. It's based off property tax. So what you'll end up seeing is places with, if you have higher income, nicer properties, you're going to get more tax that's going to come in and go straight to your schools. And if you don't come from those neighborhoods, you're not going to get that kind of money, and your school is going to fail for, and be impoverished for that reason. So it's a very classist, and ends up being classist and racist school funding program that we have in Ohio. So schools in Columbus, in the south end of Columbus, that are largely Appalachian and black communities, are going to have a harder time getting that funding. But at the same time, schools in southeastern Ohio, in Athens, and in rural areas have the exact same situation. And we've seen that this is unconstitutional. It's been brought up to our courts 4 times, and nothing's been done. Year after year, they know that this is unconstitutional, and they allow it to continue. And I grew up going to these protests, trying to make sure that we would get this funding, and nothing's happened so far. And then for me, when it really became real for public education was when in 2011 we have our lovely governor, John Kasich, passed a law called Senate Bill 5, which would effectively get rid of collective bargaining rights. And I remember, my dad's a teacher, by the way, on the south end of Columbus. So when that bill came out, I realized it hit my family in more ways than one. Not only was my dad a teacher, but that was the career I was going to go into. And suddenly there was a shift in my own education as going into education. It was it all made sense. It became political. I was hearing on the news how this is about getting rid of bad teachers. This is about making our schools, we're going to improve them by getting rid of their rights to collectively bargain for classroom conditions and better wages. And I realized as long as people like that are going to tell me that I'm going to be a bad teacher, and they're attacking my dad, saying that he's a bad teacher, I realized that I have to fight back. And for the rest of my life, I'm going to resist that. And I'm going to be the best damn teacher that I can be because of that. Exactly for that. Resistance is, that's going to be my motivation. And that's what's going to make sure that I'm doing everything I can. So, but I think that our generation, particularly, again, like Israel was saying, we have to be the forefront of this movement. And there's a particular reason for that. Is that we grew up taking these standardized tests. I understand a lot of teachers here, you all are very frustrated with them because you have to proctor these tests and it hurts your pedagogy. But we've done these tests for 3 weeks every year. We grew up doing that. So public education for us has been standardized tests, teaching to tests. And now we're at a point where we're graduating college, going into the field of education, and we're proctoring those same tests, and we're teaching those same tests, and our pay is going to be based off of those tests, and we have to ruin our pedagogy. Everything that I'm learning is about a critical pedagogy, but I'm going to have to teach to a test at the end of the day. And the problem is, is that because we grew up with this, we're going to see that the standardized testing becomes hegemonic, and that becomes the way public education is. We grew up with it, now we're teaching to it, and that's just going to be the way it is. It's going to be cement, much like the prison here that we have here. Same way. But at the same time, our generation is going to be the forefront for this resistance. Because at the exact same time, you can go into every teacher education classroom in the country and go, do you remember what it was like to take those tests? Did you like those? And every single college student's going, no, I hated it, you know. For 3 hours a day, I would sit down and take a test, and then maybe we'd get a snack at some point and an art project, but I hated it. It was so boring. So if you really want to see that change, we have to go into these classrooms where teacher ed is going on and have that conversation about what was it like to go through that, and what can we do to resist it. The same way that education took on a new meaning when it became political for me, I think it has to do that with every education major in the country. We can no longer be neutral on these issues and say, we're going to be unbiased, we got to take a step off. I have a lot of professors, they say stuff like that. They're like, I can't push the boundaries because I gotta look out for me. It's like, you know what? There's no neutrality in education. There never has been, there never will be. So when you make it political, you make it meaningful. We have to have that tough conversation. What is neoliberal agendas doing to public education? How are we going to resist it, though? And I think it's going to be first with us. So every time that they talk about standardization, we have to talk about democracy in a classroom. We have to talk about that every single time. When they talk about high-quality teachers and pushing things like TFA, we have to talk about what does it mean to be a high-quality teacher? You know, what it means a high-quality teacher is someone who knows their curriculum, knows critical pedagogy, and is willing to really try to do that. And then also is willing to resist anything that's going to hurt students and the craft itself of education.
Thank you.
And when we talk about education reform, we have to step it up. When they talk about education reform, we have to stand here and we want to go, you know what? We're not about reform. We're about education revolution. Pure and simple. This system, it wasn't good before, and it wasn't good now, and it's not going to be better until we take reform, throw it out the window, and we revolutionize education, and we change it from the ground up. That's the reality. Thank you.